Hello and welcome to Rainbow History Class, the queer and trans history that you probably don't get in school. My name is Rudy Jean Rigg.
And my name is Hannah McElhinney.
And welcome to the show this week. It is officially Pride Month and I'm feeling especially gay.
Me too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm really feeling it.
I feel like I wasn't feeling gay enough when Mardi Gras happened, but now I am.
Yeah, and it's good because you get the double down of like it being winter here in Melbourne, so I feel especially in my element.
I was literally going to say the same thing. It's hard to be gay in the summer. That's not what any gay
would
man
ever say.
But I feel like there's nothing better than a queer dark academia layered fantasy for me, so I'm happy.
Okay, that's good because I am as well, and I'm especially happy because during Pride Month, I always like to talk and tell everyone that you've written an entire book. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but it's like people are telling me, oh my God, Rudy, it's Pride Month. And I'm like, oh my God, I have a piece of information to exchange with you. We have a whole book about it. So if you are listening in and you didn't know that we had a book, this is my one and only plug on behalf of Hannah McElhinney, who did write it. Please go check out our book as well as, liking and subscribing. That's what I always say. Please, please. If you enjoy us, just follow us here on Spotify or over on Apple Podcasts.
It makes such a big difference if you actually hit follow rather than check back every week. We are really excited because we have started to chart in some countries. And I know I'm really excited about how we're charting in Macedonia.
We were number 2 overall podcasts.
Totally. So shout out to Macedonia and wherever you're listening from.
Yes. And I do have a challenge for those who are going to go out their way to follow the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a written review. And Hannah and I love sharing them between each other because they make us scream with delight. Go ahead, write us a review on Apple Podcasts. And I want you to write in and work in the word potato.
Yes. So then we'll know exactly where you got it from.
Yeah. All right. This week, Hannah, I'm taking you into my little world. I'm bringing you over into my corner of the internet.
Yes.
I don't know if you're scared or not.
No, I'm not. I'm really excited because honestly, there's so much about you and your corner of the internet that genuinely confuses me. So I'm always happy to have a 101.
All right. Well, we're breaking down the barriers yet again today, and we are looking at fan fiction.
Wow.
I was kind of hesitant to cover this topic because it's so sparse and it means so much to a lot of people, and I really wasn't sure where I wanted to come from. So the only thing I can do is really come from my perspective. So that's what I'm going to do today. So do you know much about fan fiction?
I do. I certainly know Wattpad, or I know of Wattpad, which I believe is where most people publish their fan fiction. And I also know that some fan fictions have become so loved that they've been turned into like legitimate films or TV series. I also am aware of some of the stigma around people that like or create fan fiction. And I have to say that at certain times I didn't really get the point of it, or maybe like also without necessarily saying that I fueled the stigma, I think I probably understood where the stigma was coming from more than where the fan fiction creators were coming from. And I'm really, really hoping that my mind can be changed by learning a little bit more, and I'm sure it will, because if you like it, there's chances are there's something good about it.
I mean, that's very sweet of you to say. I think I actually, listen, I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable here. I think I live, listen, I don't live with a lot of shame. I will say that, but
I can tell. You look at the ears on your hood.
But I do live with the shame of knowing that deep down I was like one of those kids who read fan fiction like religiously. I wrote fan fiction, but I never spoke about it. I had a completely separate Tumblr blog that was dedicated to my fan fiction, that was anonymous, that was not connected to my mildly popular fan blog for Sherlock, the BBC series. They were completely separate. I didn't want anyone knowing that I was writing or like engaging in it.
Are you the Rudy Jean Rigg from the Sherlock BBC series fan blog also writing fan fiction? Incredible.
I was really scared of like being found out. I don't know. I was just really ashamed about it. But
do you think a lot of fan fiction is anonymous?
No. Yeah. Well, I guess so. I mean, you have these like, back in the day, I'm speaking from like 2009 to like 2017, which is when I was kind of like involved in the community. you would have like these online personas, like having an online persona where no one actually knew your face, or you weren't out there to upload a photo or tell people really about much of your personal life. In that way, yes, it was anonymous, but it wasn't anonymous in the sense that like you could be like famous online.
Yeah.
So fan fiction for me is a really personal thing. So I'm happy to like take arguments in the DMs. That's so fine. But for you, Hannah, who doesn't really know much about it, let's just run through the facts, and then we'll this story is littered with like kind of fun facts and sad facts. And let's just start from the top. So the term fan fiction has actually been used in print as early as 1938. Okay, so it's relatively old in the sense of like when we think of fandom, we really think of something that maybe started in the late 90s or, you
like
know.
post comic books.
Yeah, post comic books. I mean, comic books would have had fandoms, but it wasn't really, there was community, I suppose, not in the same way as there is today. Fan fiction, when we talk about it in like the 1940s and 50s, it wasn't like what we know it as today. It was actually referring to amateur written science fiction.
Right.
So it was like you like science fiction and you're writing science fiction stories, you're writing fan fiction.
Like in Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox's dad.
What does he do?
Well, writes amateur fan fiction, and then in one version of the future, he becomes very successul at it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I would say it's like that. And then
George McFly,
shout out.
But amateur, like how do you become a professional? I assume the opposite of an amateur science fiction writer is a professional science fiction writer. So do you sort of make the leap, or did people kind of go to university to become the professional kind?
No, I think you just had to get published, because then you became like, I guess back in that day when like independent publishing wasn't the same again as it is today. You really had your street cred upped when you were published, because it meant that like someone or the industry was taking you seriously.
Yeah.
So we look at that and we go, okay, well then fan fiction must have come from the 1940s. Incorrect. Sorry, you're just wrong.
You're the one with all the information.
Well, I'm just clarifying.
You scaffold me up and then slash me down, Rudy Jean Rigg.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fan fiction actually began earlier than that. And we've seen it in sort of loose terms being done with, for example, Shakespeare could arguably be seen as someone who made plays like Romeo and Juliet, Much Ado About Nothing, and Othello about, as fan fiction.
So Shakespeare, the greatest writer in our admittedly Western times,
yes,
was a fan fiction writer.
Well, the plays that I mentioned, those characters are actually based on relatively like recent pieces of fiction by other writers. So in that sense, yes.
No way.
Yes. But if we want to look at something else, something that I found a little bit more interesting, in 1614, a writer actually wrote a sequel to Cervantes' Don Quixote.
Oh my gosh, I love Don Quixote.
Yeah, before Cervantes was able to finish and publish his own second volume. So that was fan fiction as well.
Oh my gosh,
1614.
Cervantes would have been livid, and also kind of on brand for the story of Don Quixote.
Well, funny you say that, because this is my first gay tidbit of the episode.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know where that came from. It's Pride Month and I'm doing
Do you have to,
things.
bring gay into everything?
Yep.
Just quoting our comment section. Carry on.
Sorry, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know how to answer that. Here's my fun fact. In 2005, 400 years after the publication of the first volume of Don Quixote, the Spanish newspaper cartoonists Jose Maria Gallego and Julio Rey published a drawing titled 400 Years Waiting. And in this cartoon, there was a depiction of the novel's main characters, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, riding horseback into the sunset together. And if that's not queer enough or queer-coded enough, the artwork was actually referencing the heated debate at the time in Spain over same-sex marriage, which was then legalized on June 30th, 2005. And so these cartoonists took these otherwise not queer characters and inserted them into, I guess, queer canon. And after that, this picture did kind of spur this moment of these characters becoming gay icons, because I guess the LGBTQ plus community in Spain saw, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza as emblematic characters of the same struggles that they were going through, which I found really interesting.
That's very sweet, but actually also the thing that came to my mind just then was just how far ahead Spain was compared to Australia in terms of same-sex marriage. 2005, wow.
Mm-hmm. You said it, not me, but I was thinking that. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just like chewing these. I took a sip when I shouldn't have taken a sip. All right, I'm drinking a bubble tea.
And you've got boba pearls.
I was gonna say balls in my mouth, but then I realized that was not a good look. So
you don't want to be having bubble tea on a podcast. Or maybe you do if it's the kind of ASMR you like.
I'll give everyone some ASMR. Are you ready? You're welcome. Okay. So moving into the 20th century, now we are looking at the modern interpretation of fan fiction. I want you to guess what TV show inspired and kicked off the fan fiction revolution.
TV show, not film?
Correct, TV show.
I'm going to hazard a guess and say Star Trek.
What? How did you know that?
Well, I guess I was thinking about Spock.
What about Spock?
Because I'm always thinking about Spock.
I love that man.
No, because I guess what I was thinking was when you think of nerd culture and the most, I guess, made fun of community within that, it would be the Trekkies, right?
So you were a bully as a child. You were definitely bullying people about.
I mean, I
fiction.
was a child of the 2000s, so I think that I probably made a lot of people's lives harder than they needed to be and also had the same done to me. But I do think that I certainly do remember that when people talk about Trekkies, it's certainly not that I've experienced in a really positive way. Apart from my like long-term childhood best friend, Mon, she's very into Star Trek.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where.
So, I think that was the first time I saw it. I was kind of like 18 or something. And I was like, hey, this show's actually pretty good. But I guess the stigma around liking Star Trek stopped me from watching it for so long. Yeah. So that's why I would, my second guess would have been Star Wars.
A little bit too late, but yeah. It's Star Trek.
And then otherwise I would have gone with Batman.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure like there was kind of but again, I think because it was a comic, it's more in like the kind of visual medium.
Yeah.
So it's like not really fan fiction in terms of writing.
Because people said Spock was kind of queer coded, right? And also autistic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough to like make a statement on whether he's like an icon for the community, but I do definitely know that like I look at that man, I'm like I'm like something. We're kindred spirits in a way that I'm not sure you understand. Yeah. So yes, the modern kind of phenomenon of fan fiction does stem from Star Trek, and it actually began in fanzines in 1960s rather, and the first Star Trek fanzine was called Spockanalia, and it came out in 1967, and it contained what is believed to be the first iteration of modern fan fiction. And in this sort of era, this is also where queer fan fiction is believed to have come from within Star Trek, because there was quite a few like romance stories written about Captain Kirk and Spock in the 1960s. And my second fun fact of the day is that unlike a lot of like aspects of the fandom at the time, of the Star Trek fandom, which was mainly male dominated, really interestingly, a scholar has stated that at least 90% of the authors of Star Trek fan fiction were female.
I think going back to my friend Mon, that checks out. And if she was a little older, she would have been one. I never understood why she liked Star Trek so much. She liked all like the X-Files, Star Trek, Buffy, all those. She loves all those classic fandoms.
Yeah.
But I do remember my dad played this prank on me when we were about 18 or something. And he thought it would be funny to change our family Wi-Fi after hearing me talk about why is Mon so obsessed with Star Trek? I just don't get it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Change the family home's Wi-Fi to Starfleet Command.
That's so good.
Of course, I had no idea what that reference was from, having not seen it. And so when she came over and she was like, hey, what's your Wi-Fi? It doesn't work anymore. I said, oh, it's just Starfleet Command. And she was like, I knew you were a Trekkie. No! And I was like, what are you talking about? Dad steps out from the hallway, very pleased with himself. Anyway, you can't steal my Wi-Fi because it's no longer that. But
I love that.
That wouldn't surprise me that if my friend Mon was one of those early Star Trek authors.
Well, I mean, these authors, the scholars talking about a period of time which was between 1970 and 1973.
Yeah, so she wasn't born, but carry on.
For me, it's funny because you're like, okay, I mean, I'm autistic and I'm also queer. I'm also really into fandoms. And it's really funny to me that like the root of like this kind of like cultural phenomenon that involved queer people was also in a space that probably was taken up by a lot of neurodivergent or autistic people as well. Like I can't escape my identity at all. Like it just follows me everywhere. And I find it really funny and like endearing and kind of nice to know that like I'm sitting here like I don't know over like half a century later almost, and like people are still like going crazy for like made up people in books and films and TV shows, and we're still going to conventions and we're still writing stories about them. And I don't know, it just feels nice to kind of be seen in like that sort of like multi-dimensional space. But
I feel grateful to the neurodivergent community in the fandom scene for just doing so much work and administration and kind of building these fandoms out that, you know, other people who haven't, you know, dipped a toe into the world of fandom yet are just seeing on the surface in these kind of great film and TV and book properties, whereas underneath all the work is being done by our queer neurodivergent fans to kind of flesh them out, add the structure, add the lore so that it's, you know, even more likely that these titles, these shows, these films, they'll continue. So I want to say thank you.
On behalf of the committee, you're welcome. I think it's really funny as well because it's like we do think of things as like, oh, of course, like Trekkies would write fan fiction. Yeah, no, like, yeah, of course they're writing crazy, weird stuff about Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. Like normal people don't do that. And to that I say you're wrong again because shan't we remember 50 Shades of Grey? Do you remember that?
I remember it, yeah.
Did you ever read it? Please tell me you didn't.
No, I never read it.
Okay.
I never read it. I did watch the first film and I didn't sort of get it.
Okay, good. Do you know why you probably didn't get it? Because it was a fan fiction. And no disrespect to fan fiction.
What was it a fan fiction of?
Twilight. It was a 50 Shades of Grey.
I'm sorry. I have seen Twilight and read Twilight and I have seen that film. I don't understand how it was like there's nothing.
So I don't know what happened from text to screen.
Right.
With 50 Shades of Grey because I didn't read the original fan fiction and I didn't watch the film. I've only listened to podcasts tear it apart. But I do know that it was a fan fiction about Bella and Edward. And so like I think they took the whole like edging aspect of Twilight and they just were like, what if they had sex all the time? Like I think that was kind of it.
I get it. I think it was one of those things because I think it was a phenomenon where I feel like the stereotype associated with 50 Shades of Grey is all of these, you know, I guess bored housewives at home tittillating themselves with their first foray into kink or, you know, bondage or BDSM. And of course I know to those communities, those kink communities, they've always been super critical of the series because it's not an accurate nor positive representation of how those kinks do and should work. But yeah, that's kind of the stigma that is built around people that enjoyed it. And I do remember seeing a lot of people read it on the tram and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like things like that. Like I'm shitting on 50 Shades of Grey and I believe rightly so. But I'm not shitting on like the culture that, you know, is being badly represented through it. Like, and that's the thing. It's like this is where fan fiction, it has its context, I think. And there is really badly written like fan fiction, and there is a lot of fan fiction that is just, it's just super like white, and it's super able-bodied, like it's super like just white cis men, you know, like a lot of like fan fiction is just written about these white cis men who have romantic instances together, which is so fine.
And what was it? Wasn't there a fan fiction that was based on One Direction? There was like a film that was made that was based on One Direction fan fiction.
Yeah, so that is Anna Todd's 2013 fan fiction After, which was about One Direction. It was made into a book, and then I believe like the name and whatnot, it all got edited obviously for publication, and then it was also made into a movie, and that came out in 2019. Also haven't watched that.
What was it called?
After.
Okay.
Yes. The thing about fan fiction is that I think particularly for marginalized groups, and in this case we're talking about the queer community, fan fiction is a really good tool to explore life through, because you're using these like pre-made characters, these pre-made traits, environments, worlds, timelines that you basically get to kind of play around in and kind of make your own. And in that way, I think that it provides a really good foundation for a, you know, very creative community or people within it to kind of see what life could be like, or share what they want life to be like with others. And that's like what a lot of people do when they write fan fiction. And then also writing or engaging in any kind of creative task is just so good for the soul. Like it just feels good. And so to write like romance stories, or even stories with like high emotion, like death and loss and grief, illness and things like that, that's good too. Because, you know.
There is I do think this was a period of time where there was no representation. So I do understand the need state that was there in terms of when you don't have any stories in culture that you can access and see yourself through, you have to make your own. And using characters that already exist is a really smart way of doing that. And I think there's so many times that I would have loved to have accessed fan fiction, I can imagine, when I was searching for these stories, but I wouldn't have known where to find it because I wasn't part of the community. But I certainly do remember, I don't know, watching Lord of the Rings in 2003 and being like, why do I love Legolas so much?
Oh my God.
And, you know, not being able to explore any further than that, but I can imagine there are fan fictions where Legolas is a lesbian.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, all those types of things I think I would have really, really liked growing up if I'd, you know, found the community.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's all about finding this community. And with fan fiction, it is online. It was on Tumblr. It was on AO3, Archive of Our Own. It was on fanfiction.net. And they were special places because writing fan fiction meant that you were a part of something and you had an opportunity to contribute to a culture directly and change it and mold it and make like a huge difference in like other people's lives. But also like feel seen and, you know, feel connected or feel safe to explore, because like when you're able to just read something, it's a very private experience. It's a very personal experience. And, you know, for those that are autistic or neurodivergent who do have deeply, deeply important special interests or fleeting, like beautiful hyperfixations, being able to take a property like a TV show or a movie that only has a finite amount of like minutes to it and then expand that into an endless universe, it like rocked my fucking world when I realized that I didn't have to disengage from my interest every time like the credits started to roll, but I could actually make my own world and it would still be reflective of the original property. It's just magical.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I do remember there was kind of a task that we were often given in English class in school, which was to insert a chapter into a book that we were studying, and that was always my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Which was to write like an extra scene. And I do also understand the frustration of just having exhausted all possible fandom. This was what I was like after I finished watching Yellow Jackets, because that was the series that most recently gripped me to the core, and I watched everything, all of the TikToks, all of the behind the scenes. I was so thirsty for content, and I still am, and I'm waiting. So maybe that's where I need to go after this, is to dive into, I'm sure there's Yellow Jackets fan fiction.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's fan fiction for pretty much everything, and I want to share with you one of the most infamous pieces.
Ooh, okay.
I have not read this. I have only watched internet historians kind of animated retelling of this particular fan fiction, which I am going to get us to react to as part of a bonus episode for Patreon after we finish recording this episode. But it is the infamous fan fiction, which is a bizarre combination of My Chemical Romance and Harry Potter fan fiction, and it is called My Immortal.
The Evanescence song?
That is what it's named after. So
Wait, the Evanescence song is named after this, or this is named after the Evanescence song?
This is named after the Evanescence song.
All right.
Okay. Now, we don't truly know who published this. If you want to look up more information, please go and have a look at this yourself. But I am going to read you, Hannah, as much as you will bear.
Okay.
Hello, this is Editing Rudy. I am just checking in because I realized while I was editing this that I didn't even tell Hannah that My Immortal was queer. And in the moment, I actually forgot that it was queer. And I think I just got swept up in the moment. But yes, My Immortal, the cringiest fan fiction that we all love to hate, is in fact canonically queer. And I really recommend you head over to our Patreon because we ended up filming a really funny episode where we react to, I think it was like the first 20 or 30 minutes maybe, retelling of My Immortal. And we lost our minds. Like, I felt physically ill from laughing after we did that video. So yes, My Immortal is canonically queer. But what I will say is that there are a lot of awful, outdated words being used in My Immortal that I don't read on the podcast, but the internet historian does say out loud. And of course, we do not condone the use of these words. So anyway, I will let you get back to the episode. Bye. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm not sure how much I will be able to bear, but I am going to sit here.
I am going to read this dramatically. I'm not going to read it to you in my narration voice. I'm going to give you like a dramatic reading.
Okay.
A disclaimer, there's some really bad language in here and I'll try and skip it. Chapter 1. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, and I have long ebony black hair. That's how I got my name. With purple streaks and red tips that reaches from my middle back and icy blue eyes like limpid tears.
Okay. Okay. What is a limpid tear?
And a lot of people tell me that I look like Amy Lee. Author note, if you don't know who she is, get the hell out of here. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was because he's a major fucking hottie. And I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. And I have pale white skin. And I'm also a witch. And I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England where I'm in the seventh year. Brackets, I'm 17. I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell. And I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today
Hang on. If this person goes to Hogwarts, wouldn't they get all their clothes from Diagon Alley, not Hot Topic?
Listen, don't get into the semantics. We're right up to the first piece of dialogue, all right?
Okay.
I was walking outside Hogwarts. It was snowing and raining, so there was no sun.
I don't think it can snow and rain at the same time.
Which I was happy about. A lot of preps stared at me. I put up my middle finger to them. Hey, Ebony, shouted a voice. I looked up. It was ... Draco Malfoy. What's up, Draco? I asked. Nothing, he said shyly. But then I heard my friends call me and I had to go away.
But wouldn't this goth person be a Slytherin?
I don't know.
Why is it infamous?
Are you not listening to me?
I mean, this is the thing. Like, is it good because it's bad? As in, is fan fiction supposed to be bad? Because I don't understand. Like, this sounds to me like what someone would write if they were learning about sentence clauses.
Probably, but it's so bad it's good. understand because you'll get like a visual picture when we watch the video for Patreon. But I want to just skip ahead into a place I've never seen before because I feel like, okay, I've just found a good passage, which I don't know whether we'll be able to put on social media, but I'll just want to read this because this is it's more of a tone. That was like the preamble. This is like.
Wow. All right. Give me the guts of it then.
And this is painting fan fiction in a really bad light. I don't know what's happened, but basically Dumbledore is now here. Okay. He kept shouting at us angrily. "You ludicrous fools," he shouted. I started to cry tears of blood down my pallid face.
Okay, that is actually a great line. Yeah. I cried tears of blood down my pallid face.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, that one's actually good. I could use that.
Draco comforted me. When we went back to the castle, Dumbledore took us to Professor Snape and Professor McGonagall, who were both looking very angry. "They were having sexual intercourse in the Forbidden Forest," he yelled in a furious voice. "Why did you do such a thing, you mediocre dunces?" asked Professor McGonagall. "How dare you?" demanded Professor Snape. And then Draco shrieked, "Because I love her!" Everyone was quiet. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall still looked mad, but Professor Snape said, "Fine, very well, you may go up to your rooms." Draco and I went upstairs while the teachers glared at us. "Are you okay, Ebony?" Draco asked me gently. "Yeah, I guess." I lied. I went to the girls' dorm and brushed my teeth and my hair and changed into a low-cut black floor-length dress with red lace all around it and black high heels. When I came out...
Shouldn't she be wearing her school robes?
I don't know, but it just goes on and on like this.
Oh my God. Also, just having sexual intercourse in the Forbidden Forest.
There's so many spiders.
I could just imagine that, like, J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter and the sexual intercourse in the Forbidden Forest. Okay. This is...
We have to shut it down, but I just want everyone to have experienced that with me because it is such a fundamental part of like internet history and it's something that gave fan fiction.
Did people like it?
No, they hated it, but it was so bad it was so good. Like it's so bad it's so good. Like that's like, and it's not good as in like this is a good story or this is well written. No, it's just good because it's bad and that's it. You know, there's not much else to it.
Okay. All right. Because that to me is probably representative of my previous assumptions around fan fiction.
Yeah. And in that sense, it's like, yes, stuff like that does exist, but like I said, people love it. And that's the thing about fan fiction. It's like, it doesn't matter how good it is or how bad it is. There's love to be had, you know, and that to me just comes back to the core part of like why fandoms do this and why queer people feel so safe in fandoms. It's because like, it doesn't really matter what anything is or why anything exists. It's like, it's there to be like embraced in whatever way it ends up being embraced. And that I think is like, so I don't know. It's just so telling of like fandoms. And yes, there's awful parts to fandoms. And yes, like there is bad parts to everything really. But it's like, I don't know. It's things like that. And it's like, you know, people would make friends about like making a shit post on Tumblr about My Immortal and then all of a sudden someone else has commented and then you're in their ask box and then you're talking to them and then, oh my God, like my best friend I met because I was like shit talking this fan fiction, you know, online. And that's kind of like really cool. And I think it's really important. It plays a part of like building community and keeping communities together, but then it also plays that really important role of like being that representation that people like really sorely need. So look, that's the thing. If you've been sitting there, I don't care how old you are, I literally do not give a shit. If you've never read fan fiction, I want you to Google your favorite TV show or movie, the type of fan fiction you want, so romance, horror, whatever, pick a genre, and then type fan fiction, and then I want you to read it. I want you to read something because it is such an experience. Like I said.
I'm going to do that, and then I'm also going to write a piece of fan fiction for you next week.
Please write one. I was going to share my personal one because I did re-edit one, I think 2 years ago, just for fun, like to test my editing skills because I hadn't edited it in like writing in a while. And I can't show it to you because we work together and you're like my friend and I just can't. I can't. It's literally nothing. I think it's literally just about like Sherlock, like wakes John up in the middle of the night and John's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I can't sleep. And then John's like, go back to your room. And then Sherlock was like, okay, but can't I just sit at the end of your bed? And John was like, I guess so. Which is very telling of my like personal stance on like what makes an intimate relationship. I just don't want to read it to you because I don't think I've ever shown you any fiction writing. Oh, I have actually. No, I haven't. Anyway, it's not time. Maybe as a special request at your 50th birthday.
Okay, so next year.
You got an upper hand. You're a published author. Does that make it fan fiction or does that make it just fiction?
I don't know.
Or a pastiche?
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's professional fiction. We'll see. You'd be the judge.
All right, I'll judge you. Well, thanks for hearing me out. I hope you enjoyed that last bit of reading I did for you. I don't know. That listen, I'm telling you. Fan fiction, I feel like I'm regressing. I feel like I'm regressing to 15 years old. I'm really embarrassed. Like, I'm like, oh, no, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to tell you about it. No, don't. Stop.
No, that's good. No, that's interesting. I think that, no, I can definitely see, and I feel like just having that conversation with you makes me want to dip my toe in. I'm really hoping, is there any actually good fan fiction?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll write fan fiction about us.
No, because you know who suffered with the trail of fan fiction written between the duo of them for years? Dan and Phil. Dan still gets fan fiction sent to him about him and Phil.
Okay.
But hey, listen, if you want to kick it off, you go ahead, Hannah.
Okay.
Because that is terrifying. But if you want to start that monster.
Hang on, you said there was something sad about fan fiction.
Well, it's just a lack of representation that like really, like as in, okay, this is the thing. The sad thing is that while there is representation and people do feel represented, there is still a lack of like intersectional representation.
Yeah.
Because unless like you take like, and because that's like number one, like in terms of we think about like representation of people of color, like, you know, if you're taking like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, they're white men, unless you like make an AU, which is an alternative universe fan fiction of them where they are a person of color, that's just not going to exist. And you know, unless you are a person of color, it also wouldn't exist because like a white person doing that is just kind of fucked. So
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. And like, you know, unless you make a fan fiction of like someone who uses a wheelchair, it doesn't exist because like people who use wheelchairs aren't like in popular media.
You need the popular culture. You need the titles to be intersectional so that we've got the source material for the fanfic writers to use. And that makes total sense.
And it's kind of in a way as well, like the communities are normally pretty good on like self-policing in terms of like, you know, unless the author has kind of stated like, oh, I'm a person of this experience. Like people are generally kind of do frown upon those who do write from an experience that they're not from. Unless, like in terms of being a person of color or
I get that, you know, someone who's otherwise marginalized. No, I totally get that. It makes me think when shows are cancelled and everyone's really angry about them, I think there's something nice about them, you know, just going to the world of fan fiction. So fan fiction kind of saving cancelled series.
I am scared to look at the Warrior Nun fan fiction.
No, me too. I'm scared to look
I'm
at
scared.
That. I'm scared. Yeah.
I want to look at it though.
Let's not.
No, we don't talk about Warrior Nun. Look, but I am excited to hear your fan fiction next week. Or on Patreon whenever it gets there.
I'm gonna do a queer history fan fiction.
Oh my God. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Well, this is a challenge now. This is I'm excited. I'm excited. Please don't make it too long. It needs to just be
ouch.
No, because you wrote a whole book. I don't know what you're capable of these days.
I'm capable of writing a book, but this one I'll keep it short and sweet.
No, I want to like 800 words, like a high school essay.
Longer than what I was going to do.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was going to do a vignette.
What's a vignette?
Like a small scene.
Oh, like 250 words or something?
Yeah. No, 500.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you 800 words in a queer history fan fiction and you can get that on Patreon. But thanks so much for telling me that story, Rue.
You're so welcome. I could talk about it all day, but I truly did get a little bit embarrassed in the end. So
I can tell you did. Your shudders went up. But no, I respect fan fiction and I love your interests in it. And as somebody who is deeply into popular culture and loves television like I do, I'm really appreciative of anyone who extends those universes and, you know, maintains or tends to the foundations of the fandoms so that the rest of us can just enjoy them on the surface. And it has reminded me to look a little bit deeper.
You said, yep. I'm so embarrassed. I got nothing left.
Okay,
I'm literally
okay, now, oh my God, Rue's got a cringery. Okay.
What?
A cringery.
What is that?
It's when you cringe so hard, you injure yourself in the heart.
Oh my God, someone call a doctor. I think I'm gonna, I need.
All right, well then while Rue deals with shame, I am going to wrap up the podcast, but thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you being here with us. If you want to show us some support, you can do so by visiting us over on Patreon. There are paid and unpaid tiers, so you can definitely sign up to hear whatever the hell fan fiction that I'm going to write. And also follow us on social media at Rainbow History Class. If you feel so inclined, feel free to go out and get a copy of the Rainbow History Class book and give it to somebody else this Pride Month who might not be able to get it themselves or who might need to do a little schooling up. And as I always say at the end of every episode, Rudy, not everything is gay, but fan fiction definitely is.
Someone save me from the cringe.